Thanks for joining in. We still have a couple more minutes before I get started, but for those of you who just have joined in the past couple of minutes, wanted to let you know that there is a Q&A at the bottom of your screen. So if there's any questions relating to tonight's discussion, please feel free, whether it's now or throughout my presentation, to ask any questions that you may have. And hopefully by the end of the session, if I have some time, I can help answer any questions that you may have related to this topic. And although it's 5, I'm going to give a couple more minutes for those people who are still trickling in, but I should be beginning in the next minute or two. So thanks so much for your patience, and very excited to have you all here tonight. Okay, I'm going to get started because I know time is precious for everyone. Thank you so much for listening in this afternoon or early evening. Very excited to be presenting on the topic of eating as a vegan or vegetarian and whether a plant-based diet can affect your fertility. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Dara Godfrey. I'm a registered dietitian working at RMA of New York, this fabulous fertility clinic. I've been working at RMA for over 14 years now and was a patient myself, and have the privilege of being a co-host to our fabulous RMA podcast, Fertility Forward. And before I get started, just a little bit about our clinic. We have been in business for 24 years now and have such a wonderful group of reproductive endocrinologists on staff, geneticists on staff, a really robust team of mental health professionals, and we have 14 clinics and 4 state-of-the-art IVF labs throughout the New York metropolitan area. So let's dive right in, and let's talk about the difference between vegetarianism and veganism. So according to the Cambridge Dictionary, vegetarianism is the practice of abstaining from the consumption of meat, particularly red meat and poultry, including also seafood, insects, and the flesh of any other animal. And vegetarianism has been around actually for a very long time, much longer than I even thought. Some studies of mummified Egyptians show that they had vegetarian diets, and historians also date the diet back to ancient Greek philosophers. Also, religious sects of Buddhism and Hinduism have encouraged this diet for hundreds of years. We're not quite sure who actually invented this term, but we believe it could be from the British Vegetarian Society that was formed back in 1847. And there's 3 main types of vegetarianism. The first one, encompassing the most, which is termed lacto-ovo-vegetarians. And those are vegetarians who include egg, milk, and milk products. And then we have lacto-vegetarians, those who exclude egg and egg products, but include milk and milk products. And then the opposite, the ovo-vegetarians, those who consume eggs and egg products, excluding milk and milk products. Now, veganism is the strictest form of being a vegetarian, and it requires the elimination of all animal products, but also animal byproducts. So on top of excluding meat, poultry, and seafood, dairy and eggs, as well as other animal-derived ingredients, often like honey, gelatin, whey, and even some forms of vitamin D are off limits. And it's interesting because a lot of people look at veganism more as a lifestyle as opposed to a diet, because it really does condemn all forms of animal exploitation and cruelty. So it's not just for, it could be health reasons, but it's for environmental, it could be religious as well, but often for environmental reasons as well. And we do know that Donald Watson was the founder of the Vegan Society, and he's the one that coined this term. He used the first and last letters of the word vegetarian to create this more orthodox version of vegetarianism. And this diet includes plant foods, similar to vegetarianism, and it's really diverse. It should be really diverse in all kinds of fruits, vegetables, nuts, grains, seeds, beans, and pulses. And then we have this term plant-based. And, I feel like we use this term a lot nowadays, and some people believe it could be synonymous with a vegan diet, but it really is more of an ambiguous term, and it can have varied definitions. The term was coined by Dr. T. Colin Campbell in the 80s, and he defined it as a diet that's consisting mostly or entirely of plant-based foods. So it can encompass this wide range of dietary patterns that I mentioned before, the fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes, nuts, and seeds and pulses, but it also may contain low amounts of animal proteins. And it's, this term is usually often more focused on health rather than ethics. But it doesn't, as I mentioned, doesn't necessarily eliminate animal protein. So it's kind of this umbrella term that on top of veganism and the various definitions of vegetarianism also can include pescatarianism, people who include fish, or a much broader term, flexitarianism, for those people who include a little bit of the meat, the poultry, the fish, the eggs, and dairy. So statistics. I was actually surprised. I thought that the stats would be a little bit higher, but the Gallup's latest consumption habits poll finds that there's about 4% of Americans are vegetarian and about 1% are vegan. This is just a poll, so it may not necessarily be super duper inclusive, but I wouldn't be surprised if these numbers are on the rise. So there really are so many health benefits to being plant-based or including lots of plant foods into our day-to-day lifestyle, on top of being potentially helpful to fight cancer, heart disease, diabetes. What's great about this eating pattern is that it really can be rich in whole foods. And I think that's, the whole purpose of this diet or this eating pattern really is to be eating a wide variety of whole fruits and vegetables, whole grains, nuts, seeds, legumes, and beans, which really can give you this wide variety of vitamins and minerals that are great for your health. Really, a lot of these foods are nutritional powerhouses, and specifically, a lot of plant-based foods can be high in folate, which is really important for fertility and neural tube defects. Also, these foods can be high in vitamin C, which is great for your immune system. Can be high in B vitamins. What I really like about a plant-forward meal plan is that it is often, or can be, or should be, really high in fiber. And fiber is great for digestion. It's great to keep your gut, your microbiome really healthy. And a lot of these foods have powerful antioxidant properties, like carotenoids, foods that are, fruits and vegetables that are high in these yellow-orange colors. And they can be anti-inflammatory. So really that's why they can be great to help fight disease and really keep your body strong. And for me, what I really think the potential benefit of being vegan or vegetarian is that it can be much more affordable. But is there support in terms of the research for this diet. And there is some research to explore this potential connection between a vegan or vegetarian diet on male or female fertility. However, the findings are mixed and somewhat unclear. So, this is the issue that I have is there's often a tendency that in terms of fertility research, they often, when they're looking at vegetarian or vegan diets, there's often a bias towards to meat, and they're making the assumption that meat is already unhealthy, which we'll get into more detail a little bit later. But let's look at the data. So studies. This is an example of two different studies that have conflicting results. The first one was released back in 2008, and it was part of the Nurses' Health Study 2. And the objective was to evaluate whether intake of protein from animal or vegetable origin, if either of them are associated with ovulatory infertility. So this is infertility related to ovulation issues. A total of 18,555 married women without a history of infertility were followed up as they attempted a pregnancy or became pregnant during an 8-year period. And they looked at one's diet through a food frequency questionnaire, which in and of itself isn't always accurate. And they related that to the incidence of ovulatory infertility. What did they find? During this follow-up period, 438 women reported ovulatory infertility, and they found that plant protein intake was actually protective against ovulatory infertility when they compared it to animal protein. But it's interesting, when they found this, when they found these results, the animal protein that led to a little bit more ovulatory infertility was actually coming from turkey and poultry rather than what some people may presume coming from red meat or processed meat. But when you actually look a little bit closer, when you analyze it a little bit more, the association was statistically weak. Now, study number 2 was released a year later by the same authors, looking at the same data from the Nurses' Health Study 2, the 18,550 women of childbearing age, and they showed here, they actually were doing research on carbohydrate quantity and quality, but they found that the lowest rates of ovulatory infertility were actually among the women eating the most animal protein. And this relevant finding was only briefly mentioned, really briefly mentioned in the results section of this paper and was not expanded upon. I get it, it's about carbohydrates, protein really wasn't the main focus, but this is a perfect example of how sometimes they minimize the results if it's not the results that they want to see. And for example, I want to show you that the group consuming the most animal protein was about 76 grams of animal protein per day. They're the ones that had less ovulatory infertility compared to the ones eating 50 grams of animal protein a day. And that's just a difference of like 3.5 ounces of animal protein. So it's interesting to see that inadequate protein, regardless of the source, may still impact fertility. But again, sometimes you have to read between the lines and realize that sometimes people they minimize some of the findings that don't necessarily fit their narrative. So just something to keep an eye out. Other research, especially related to men, because we want to include men in this as well. This was a systematic review done in 2023, and it looked at many different studies, and they wanted to find the association between vegetarian diets and fertility, focusing on sperm quality, as well as various sex hormones in both men and women. And what they found was that there's no significant difference between vegetarians and omnivores. Omnivores are animal eating, people who eat animals. In terms of semen quality parameters, including total sperm count, sperm motility, sperm morphology, sperm concentration, and there wasn't also specific differences in female hormones as well. So a great example that there was no conclusive positive or negative associations between a vegetarian diet with regards to semen parameters, sex hormone levels, and infertility. And then the last one was something a little different. It was a retrospective study looking back. This was done in 2014, and they compared sperm characteristics of male infertility patients who were either lacto-ovo-vegetarians, vegan, or non-vegetarians. And what they found was both lacto-ovo-vegetarians and vegans had significantly lower total motility, with the lacto-ovo-vegetarians also having lower sperm concentrations. And in terms of vegans, the trend toward lower sperm concentrations. And they the researchers stated that it may be due to nutrient deficiencies like zinc or vitamin B12. But the good news, so even though it doesn't seem so great for vegetarians or vegans, the results still did not extend into the infertile range. So not enough, to mark them as infertile, but still on that trend. So you can see there's just a lot of different research, a lot of conflicting research, nothing to really strongly suggest that it's great, but not strongly suggesting that it's a not great option for people for fertility. And for me, it's really about the balance of really going for whole foods. And whether you're omnivorous or vegan or vegetarian, it's really important to look at the quality of your diet. So it's really important to also look at not only the potential benefits of a vegan or vegetarian diet, but also to look at the potential shortcomings that have the potential to negatively impact one's fertility. And it really does depend on someone's overall composition of one's diet, so really the quality. But I want to start off by looking at protein, because protein, no matter what, may be the weak link as it relates to overall health, fertility, and pregnancy. Why? Because I mentioned time and time again to my patients that proteins are the building blocks of human life. So it's really important to consume this constant supply of protein to help not only for pregnancy, but also for overall reproductive health. So you can get enough protein if you're a vegan or vegetarian, but you really do need to pay close attention to your diet to really ensure that you're consuming adequate amounts. And I want to give you a little graphic of, they're all the same serving sizes here, 3.5 ounces or 100 gram servings of plant-based proteins versus animal-based proteins. And so you can see there's still a lot of protein in these plant-based protein options, but I want to let you know, not all the proper serving sizes for all these foods are 3.5 ounces. So for example, something like almonds. Wow, you're getting a lot of protein in almonds in a 3.5 ounce serving, but a healthy serving size of almonds is 1 ounce. So that will give you closer to 6 grams of protein. So, it's not apples to apples in terms of almonds to chicken breast in terms of, approximate amount of protein. For the healthy serving size, you're going to be getting a lot less. And if you end up eating a lot more, that may not be super nutritious. So just keep in mind, just because it may have a lot of protein for a larger amount, it may not be the healthy serving size that we need. I also wanted to mention that proteins are composed of amino acids, of which 9 of the 20 that there are essential, or another way of putting it, are considered complete proteins. We need them to get from food, and animal foods like meat, poultry, seafood are all considered complete proteins because they do contain all of the 9 amino acids. Some vegetarian sources do have that, are complete, eggs and dairy. And for vegans, good news, quinoa, amaranth, soy, hemp, chia are all sources of complete proteins, which is amazing. However, it's important to note that some of these foods, although they may contain complete proteins, they may not contain, as I mentioned before, as much protein per serving as animal protein. So we may need larger amounts to consume. On the other hand, there are some vegan sources of proteins that are incomplete. That means they're missing 1 or more of the necessary amino acids. So a lot of your beans and legumes, your nuts and your seeds, are lacking at least 1 or more. The good news is you can food pair. So you can have rice and beans, put that together, it becomes a complete protein. You could have, whole wheat bread, a scoop of almond butter or peanut butter, you get a complete protein. So that aspect is great. Again, however, you may need even more protein than that to reach the healthy amount to really get every single day. On top of that, the plot thickens. A lot of vegan and vegetarian sources of protein are poorly digested relative to animal protein. So I wanted to show you this. This is research done on Fullscript, and it's showing you the appropriate serving size of all of these foods. So you can see in terms of, how much protein in a cup of lentils or an ounce of almonds. But then you see in the bottom this digestibility score, and they ranked them of anything above 100 is considered a high quality protein source where you can really digest the food well. The ones that are under 100, not digesting these foods as well. And you could see all animal proteins, and also including your eggs and your dairy, have a score, closer to that 100 range, and all of the other ones are a little bit lower. So even though I think tofu or tempeh can be great, you can get a lot of protein from them, you're not digesting them as well. And on that note of tofu or tempeh or soy-based products, a lot of people ask me, is that healthy? Especially for a vegan and vegetarian, but even an omnivorous person, soy can potentially be a nice source of protein to include in your diet. But it's good to know that the majority of soybeans grown in North America are genetically modified and grown with the use of potential harmful pesticides and herbicides. So I really do like to encourage people to choose certified organic soy-based products, your soybeans, your soy milk, your tempeh, and your tofu, if that is part of your diet. So protein, super duper important to focus on to optimize your health. Another challenge can be that many vegetarian and vegan diets may be too high in carbohydrates. We need carbs, they're brain food. It's a great source of fuel, but it's also interesting to know that a lot of these protein sources of vegan protein sources are also sources of carbohydrate. So sometimes that can tip the scale in a vegan or vegetarian diet to be eating too many carbohydrates relative to proteins and fats. That's why often many of the people that I meet with are not really even vegetarian. I should call them carbitarians, because they're eating way too many of those veggies relative to even vegetables, or way too many carbohydrates relative to vegetables and proteins and healthy fats. I want to give you this example. 1 cup of quinoa can give you about 8 grams of protein, kind of the same serving size as a cup of milk, but it also gives you 40 grams of carbohydrates, which is a little bit on the high side for a serving size when I usually like to see 15 to 30 grams of carbs. Similarly, 1 cup of black beans actually gives you almost double the amount of protein, about 15 grams of protein, but it also gives you 41 grams of carbohydrates. Compare this to the equivalent portion of chicken, just to show you. You get about 50 grams of protein for the same serving size, 0 carbohydrates. And this is really important, especially for, in terms of eating for blood sugar stability, which is really important for overall health, but specifically also for fertility. This is especially important for my PCOS patients, my patients with insulin resistance, patients who are pre-diabetic or diabetic. Balancing out your carbohydrates are really important. And going for good quality, going for whole grains. So it's really no surprise we do see vegan and vegetarians on average consuming more carbohydrates than non-vegetarians. So really trying to focus in on that balance to make sure that you're not more carbohydrate dominant, that could potentially impair your blood sugars. So eating vegetarian or vegan isn't automatically healthier for you. And I think we have this preconceived notion that it's super duper healthy, and it should be super duper healthy, but plant-based foods may still be processed or packaged and can often look more like junk food, or definitely marketed as a healthy alternative, but may not necessarily be healthier for you, and actually may include more salt, preservatives, fewer vitamins and minerals, and definitely less fiber. So it's really important to look at quality, in terms of your products, and going for foods that really have less ingredients in them. Like, I want to give you this example. I actually just had a patient who, thought she was doing a great job by eating Impossible burgers in lieu of beef. And this was, she was an omnivore, but, and I mentioned, like, have you looked at the actual ingredients for a Beyond Burger or an Impossible Burger? And you can actually see there's so many ingredients, a lot of unhealthy seed oils, a lot of preservatives, salts, sugars. And then when you look at, people who do eat beef, what ingredient? So just keep in mind that just because it's vegan or vegetarian doesn't mean it's a better option. So you have to, buyer beware. And the last thing I really want to mention before we get into the Q&A and wrap things up is what I see is you really have to be mindful of making sure you're getting in a lot of the essential vitamins and minerals that are key for fertility. And sometimes people who are vegan or vegetarian have a hard time meeting the requirements to really support your health. So I really want people to pay attention to this. Some of the micronutrients that you have to pay extra attention to if you are vegan or vegetarian, notably vitamin B12. I see 62% of vegetarian pregnant women low or deficient in vitamin B12. I'm sure the number for vegans is even higher. Why is this? Because B12 is only found in animal foods. And the problem with the B12 deficiency is that it can lead to, high homocysteine levels, and that can impact infertility. It can make it harder for fertilized embryos to implant. It could also increase risks of miscarriages. And when we also I see a lot of patients who are B12 deficient. It actually sometimes may go undetected, which is a little tricky because people who are vegan often have a diet richer in folate and those green vegetables. And if your diet is too high in folate, that can actually mask a B12 deficiency. And according to the Vegetarian Nutrition Dietetic Practice Group, all vegetarians should supplement and vegans should supplement with about 250 micrograms of B12 daily. This is like 100 times higher than the recommended dietary allowance, which is 2.6 micrograms. And it's due to the fact that only about 1% of ingested B12 from supplements is actually absorbed. So just something to take note of. Also for men as well, I didn't mention for men, it's important to supplement. Choline, I love choline. It's becoming trendy, so to speak, but we're hearing more about it now because it really is becoming this essential nutrient to add, this essential vitamin to really add, and it really helps support folate metabolism, important to help prevent neural tube defects, important in fetal brain development, important for egg health, sperm health, fertilization, implantation, PCOS, for blood sugar management. It's really important, and it's predominantly found in egg yolks and other animal products, but specifically egg yolks, super duper rich. So if you are open to incorporating eggs in your diet, 2 to 3 eggs a day may be really helpful to get in your choline, your daily choline amount. But you can also get it from a supplement, and sometimes prenatal vitamins also have a little bit of choline, so you may not have to supplement with that much extra. Vitamin A, super essential for progesterone and estrogen production. Great for sperm health, for quality and motility of sperm. And there's 2 types of vitamin A. There is the vegetarian source coming from beta carotene, and there is the animal source that's the preferred. It's the preformed vitamin A. It's the active form, retinol. The problem with beta carotene is you need to convert the beta carotene into retinol in your body, and it doesn't do it that efficiently. So that's why, and I think people are often afraid during pregnancy too high levels of vitamin A, but pre-pregnancy, it is really important to get in vitamin A coming from the preformed. And it's great when you look at a prenatal vitamin to look for one that also includes not just your beta carotene, but your preformed vitamin A. Next one, vitamin K2. It is super duper important for babies' skeletal development, and it's found and also great for hormone production and insulin, like so many things. But it's found predominantly in fatty animal foods, full fat dairy, eggs, liver. It is found in a vegan source called natto, if anyone's familiar with that. It's a fermented soybean product, but it's kind of funky if anyone's tried it. So not super yummy for many people. So a supplement may be necessary. DHA, which hopefully many of you have heard of, it should be, or possibly in your prenatal vitamin, but it is a type of omega-3. And there's so much research to show its benefit on conception, especially for older women, great for fertility treatment. It can result in higher rates of conception, help with sperm quality, motility, and it's really involved in every cell in the body during pregnancy. So important for a baby's brain, heart, and eye development. and also can help prevent the risk of early labor. But it is predominantly found in fatty fish. You can get it in vegetarian and vegan sources coming from walnuts, flax, and chia and seaweed. But similar to these other vitamins and minerals, they're not as bioavailable, so they're not as well absorbed as the fish. So, the fatty fishes are great. I do recommend, if you can, going for a fish oil, but if it's a non-negotiable, algae oil is another option. And iron too. When we think of iron, we often think of meat, but it is connected to ovulation issues. So low iron can be related to that, and it's estimated that only 20% of women have adequate iron stores for pregnancy, no matter what their diet is. Iron, so important for your blood, for oxygen, for blood flow. It can help prevent miscarriages and early labor, help your uterus, your ovaries, the blood flow, important for egg quality, sperm quality. So we really need to be getting iron. Similar to the other vitamins and minerals, there's two different types, the vegetarian and the animal-based, heme and non-heme. The heme is much better absorbed and more bioavailable. So we do see in patients that are vegan or vegetarian do often need higher amounts to properly get in the amounts that they need for their health and wellness. Zinc plays a huge role in ovulation and hormone regulation, linked to cell growth, supports follicles to mature. We need it during pregnancy to help with cell growth. And zinc deficiency can be related to miscarriages, preterm deliveries, low birth weight. Very important also for sperm health. And when we think of zinc, usually I tell patients who are open to having shellfish that oysters super duper rich in zinc. There are vegetarian options, but again, not as well absorbed, similar to iron. And we do notice usually lower zinc in patients that are vegetarian or vegan. So, something to consider supplementing. Selenium, so important for my thyroid patients, for healthy thyroid function, immune function. It may be connected, if you're not having enough, to oxidative stress, which may contribute to poor egg health, poor sperm quality. We can find it in a lot of animal products, seafood, organ meats, eggs, but the good news is that you can get it from Brazil nuts. We just noticed that most of vegan vegetarian patients typically are lower. So, getting in some Brazil nuts every day can help you get the selenium that you need. And iodine is the last one I want to briefly speak about. There's a link to a longer time to conception among people who have low iodine levels. It can be great also for thyroid health, similar to selenium. Oftentimes vegans or vegetarians don't get it enough, but the good news, seaweed and iodized salt are two ways to get them in. So, if you're cooking at home, using iodized salt may be a great way to get in your iodine. Whew, a lot of information. I feel like there's so much more to discuss, but I really do want to get to some of your questions. So is vegan or vegetarian ideal to help increase our chances of conception and having a healthy pregnancy? The jury's still not out. There are so many benefits. There's no doubt that if you're eating a whole foods, plant-forward diet, that it's beneficial for your health to get in the fiber, the vitamins and minerals. And I do think we need to focus on veggies. As the name, vegan and vegetarian, veggies are in that. We really need to have that as the foundation of our eating pattern, including half of our plate, 50% of our plate, a couple times a day, to consist of a wide variety of vegetables prepared in a wide variety of ways. And it can give you all these vitamins and minerals, which I think are really great. But I also want to make sure, a note to add, make sure that you are eating enough. I often see patients who may say that they're eating more vegetarian or vegan for health or environmental reasons, but it may also be masking an eating disorder. It's really essential, no matter what your meal plan you're choosing, that you have enough calories, macronutrients, proteins, fats, carbs that really are essential for hormone and fertility health. So some tips. As I mentioned, I'm reviewing them. When you go for carbs, complex carbs, whole grains, relative to those packaged, processed, white flour, white sugar carbohydrates. really hone in on having a wide variety of protein and really trying to prioritize protein at every meal. If you're open to having eggs and dairy, please try to add in eggs and dairy. If you're open to maybe starting to have a little salmon, perhaps start having that for your omega-3s. But even going for your organic tofu and tempeh, your quinoa, your buckwheat or your soba noodles, your beans and legumes, nuts and seeds, hemp seeds can be great ways to really round out your diet. I do think supplementation is important. On top of a prenatal vitamin, you likely will have to supplement with some extra vitamins and minerals. And that's why it's really important to meet with a dietitian because that's what our job is. Our job is to take a look at your current day-to-day diet and lifestyle routine and to help you fill in the cracks if there are some areas where we may feel like you're missing out on something to really optimize your health in general, but also your fertility potential and to keep you healthy during a pregnancy and beyond. So I really appreciate you listening to me. And also, hopefully, there's a lot more research down the road that we can, and as research comes, I would love to come back and share with you if there's any new findings down the road. But thanks for listening. And I'm going to stop my screen now by sharing, and I'm going to go back into the Zoom to see if there is. Oh, shoot. Oh my God. Stop sharing. Let me see. I don't know. I'm having a hard time. Oh, here we are. Hopefully you guys are all still here. You are still here. Sorry, I just had some tech issues. And let me see if there are any questions that I can help answer. First one is, can you please send us this recording? Yes. I believe someone on the marketing team will be sending all of you a copy for those of you who have missed it, or I do have a tendency to talk really quickly. So if you were scrambling to take notes and you kind of want to re-listen, yes, great question. We will be offering you the recording. So someone asked, how many grams of protein should a vegetarian get in a day? Great question. And, it really depends on the person, depends on your activity level. I was thinking about that during my presentation. I didn't mention that. On average, we typically recommend, or what I typically recommend at baseline is 1 gram per kilogram of body weight. So whatever your weight is in pounds, you divide that by 2.2, and that's your weight in kilograms. And whatever that number is, let's say if it's 60 kilograms, then you require 60 grams of protein per day, hopefully spread out throughout the day. But I do find that my vegetarian and vegan patients, just for the digestibility purposes, may need a little bit more, closer to maybe 1.2 or higher. People who work out and who are lifting a lot of weights may require more. So again, it really should be customized, but I really do feel like you should not for sure be going under the 1 gram per kilogram. And that really equates to approximately, 20 grams of protein per meal. If you're including snacks, that's a bonus. How can I find out my B12 levels? That can be done with blood work. That's really important to go check with your internist to get your B12 levels check. But again, if you are eating a lot of foods that are high in folate, that may mask your your B12 levels, like a B12 deficiency. So you may also want to check your folate levels as well. Another great question. Other than eggs, are there any specific fruits, vegetables that are recommended to get best vitamins, minerals needed for fertility? My whole philosophy is really trying to eat a variety. Sometimes we hone in on, there's beta carotene found in carrots. There is folate found in green vegetables. There's so many, for me, I like going for nutrient dense foods, and those are foods coming from the earth, but getting a wide variety to help ensure that you're getting a great amount from different sources. I also think it's really important to eat foods in season. You're really going to absorb the most nutrients in the foods that are being harvested currently. So, what's the season? We're coming into fall. It's, pumpkins, maybe the tail end of asparagus, Brussels sprouts, cauliflower. For fruits, we're not really having the mangoes now or the peaches. We're really getting into more apple season, pear season. My snack I had today was persimmons, really rich in vitamin C. So that's an easy thing to look up, like what are the fruits and vegetables of each season, and really try to get a wide variety of those. But also the other good thing is you can get things that are frozen. It's really more affordable. Let's say you're like really craving blueberries, and blueberries are really high in antioxidants. Going for frozen organic blueberries, those are going to be picked and frozen right away. So they will retain a lot more nutritional value than, often the blueberries that we get at the store that who knows how long it's been, travel time where it can lose a lot of the nutritional value, and it's probably not in season if it's been harvested now. So great question. So what can vegans eat for B12 if they could only find that in animal sources? So that's the thing with B12. B12 is one of those things that you will not be able to get. It's exclusively found in animal sources. So that's why a supplement really is important. And like the supplements can be more synthetic, and it can give it to you in I guess, a vegetarian source. So I know cobalamin is probably one of the best types of B12. I'll be speaking about that more in my next presentation, I believe in the beginning of September, talking more specifically about supplementation. And then zinc. You can get zinc from some greens and some grains. But again, you need to be eating a lot more of them to absorb them efficiently. So that's where supplementation, again, really may prove necessary if you're really like not wanting to even include some oysters in your diet. In terms of like recommendations for supplements, for me, I don't like to promote one specific brand, but that's a great question in terms of maybe I can have an article to give people some suggestions of some good quality, whether it's B12, choline supplements. But again, I don't like to promote one specific brand. It really depends on, what your budget is and, what your specific needs are. And then the last question that is here, this one's a little bit longer. Is there any immunological aspects associated with eating meat and IVF, implantation? What are the specific types? So, this is a heady question. I'm not sure if you're trying to get at the fact that what are the benefits, but even right before I came on to speak to you all, I did see a research article to show that there was higher birth rates in people who ate some meat in their diet. And in terms of protein in general, I do think protein's so important for IVF. But again, it doesn't necessarily have to come from meat. What I would say is, again, I think meat is so demonized nowadays, and I really do think, similar to like how I mentioned organic tofu and tempeh is really important for health and well-being. It's the quality of the food that we're eating. And, going for grass-fed beef, if you're open to it, or grass-fed bison or venison, going for good quality of anything is going to be, like you're going to get a lot more nutritional benefits. I think would I recommend having processed meats? No, it's linked to disease and cancers and heart disease. But again, I think people who are potentially open to including some animal foods, or who are not vegan or vegetarian yet and are kind of questioning it, there certain animal products, eaten in certain quality, it can really be beneficial. Liver is one example, which I know a lot of people are kind of funky when it comes to liver, other thoughts, but it's definitely a nutrient dense food that gives you a lot of the vitamins and minerals. You don't need to eat a lot of it. But in terms of benefits, there is a little bit of research. Again, it's mixed research, not only for animal-based proteins, but also for vegetarian. So it's mixed, some good, some not good. And that's where, I do think it's having the balance and really trying to focus the best on good quality food. If you're gonna go for poultry or chicken, going for pasture-raised organic. And specific foods, there are some, buzz foods that may be great for fertility, but again, I don't want you to hone in on just eating a big bowl of broccoli every single day, because that may mean that you're losing out on variety from other foods. But I do try to look for foods that have a lot of bang for your buck, a lot of foods that are nutrient dense. That's why I do like for, vegan options, nuts and seeds and nut butter, lots of nutritional value. So almond butter, eating walnuts, Brazil nuts can be great. Hemp seeds, which I didn't really mention too much. I definitely recommend, whether you eat meat or not, to sprinkle hemp seeds on yogurt, in soups. I put them in salads. Having fun with a wide variety of seeds, pumpkin seeds, sesame seeds, sunflower seeds. There's so much you can do to make your day-to-day fun. Even with beans, I think sometimes we think of like chickpeas, black beans, but there's pinto beans. There's the gigante beans. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. There's red kidney beans. There, lentils are definitely quite nutrient dense. I love soba noodles. If people are big fans of pasta, a nice healthier alternative is to go for soba noodles, which are a complete protein. And then make a fun sauce with it that includes peanut butter, so you're getting a little extra protein. Maybe that adds some sesame seeds or some other types of seeds to it. So again, you're getting protein coming from a variety of sources. And then of course, adding lots of veggies to round out that meal. I appreciate your, there's a couple more. I'm like looking back down. Oysters, okay, during pregnancy. Cooked oysters is what I recommend, just because oysters do have a high risk of, having some bacteria that may not be so great for pregnancy. And then folic acid pill, again, that's something offline that we could speak about. I'm not one to promote one specific brand, but that will be saved. This is a good segue into, I will be doing my next webinar. My next chat will be on supplementation during pregnancy and going through various supplements aside from prenatal vitamins that may be helpful to support fertility and pregnancy. So please check that out. That should be December 4th, 4th or 5th. It's the Wednesday at 5 p.m. There'll be emails that we'll be sending out to see if you guys would like to join. But again, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy day to come in, log on, and hopefully you have taken home a couple of good nuggets. I appreciate it all and have a great night.